It's so awesome that you are. Oh, hang on, Russell Gold. How do I? I'm so excited to be live. This is really cool. My name's Julie Burwald, and I'm waiting. Oh, wait, Russell is here. I think I have to. Oh, nope. I don't think that's quite right. Sorry. Oh, maybe. Kirk Walsh asked to be live, but then she went away. So anyway, my name's Julie Burwald. I'm gonna just chit chat till I see that Russell has asked to request to join. We're waiting on Russell Gold, who is the author of Superpower, and I'm so excited to be able to talk to him about it today. This is so cool. All these people are joining. Hi, everybody. Superpower is one of those books that has been like on my book stand. Oh, wait, here we go. Hang on. Okay, I think you, yeah, add. Let's see if that worked. Cancel. No, connecting.
There we go.
Hey, how are you?
Good, good. This is wonderful.
Oh, it is. I'm so excited. I'm yeah, happy we got the technology working because I wasn't too sure that was gonna, yeah, exactly. uh, so anyway, welcome everybody to this literary lunch break that Texas Book Festivals put on during these coronavirus isolation times. And like I was saying before Russell jumped on, I was so excited to have the chance to talk to you about this book because it's been on my nightstand for a long, long time. And then I started reading it last week, and like it's amazing. I just devoured it, and it felt like reading this drama. Like there was this sort of like I was like the whole time I guess it's okay to say that, it's sort of a tragedy at the end. And the whole time I kept being like, no, it has to work out, so
Yeah.
it was really great. So let me, before I talk too long, let me introduce you sort of formally.
Great.
So Russell has worked for, I think, 2 decades for the Wall Street Journal, and he's covered energy here in Texas for a lot of the time. His first book was called The Boom, and it was about this revolution in energy known as fracking. And this is his second book, Superpower, and it's about, what could be another Texas-born revolution in energy. So, yeah, maybe I want to just hand it over to you for a second to kind of set everyone up and say, give us the kind of 5-minute summary of what the book's about.
Great. Well, first of all, thank you everyone for joining in from your hunker down or from your job. When I set out to write this book, I had been reading a lot of books about climate change and renewable energy. I knew I wanted to write about renewable energy. It was such a big, important trend that was happening in the industry. And I read a lot of books on climate change, and honestly, I found them all to be horribly depressing. There's some great books out there, but don't read them to sort of come away feeling like, okay, we've got a chance, we can do this. And so I set out to write a book like that. And the first thing I had to do was to find the right person, company to follow. So I talked to a lot of people, and I kept hearing about I sort of kept coming back to the same person, who is this Houston entrepreneur named Michael Skelly, and this company he ran called CleanLine. And the idea behind it it's really a simple idea, that what he wanted to do was, in the middle of the country, there is enormous potential for wind energy. If you think about the Great Plains, there's large amounts of land. The wind there is just phenomenal, but there's one big problem. There's no one there who really needs all that electricity. So the question was, can you build really what amounts to a giant extension cord that would connect places like Southwest Kansas, the Oklahoma Panhandle, to the coast, or at least closer to the coast, to bring some of that wind energy to the more populous areas? And that's what CleanLine tried to do. That was their idea. They used a technology called let's see, high voltage HVDC. I wrote about it so much. It's some HVDC. And it was this giant multi-billion-dollar effort. And
Maybe
yeah.
you could just say, like, technologically, was this a big challenge?
No, no.
Yeah.
China does this. Germany's starting to do it. It's the easiest thing to do. If you want to build a wind farm in the middle of Oklahoma, there are 10 companies that will do it for you, 20 really. If you want to build this extension cord, you just pick up the phone, you call Siemens or GE or ABB, these giant technology companies. The challenge was political. The challenge was, can you convince the country, the people who live there, that this was the right idea? And that's really what Clean Line set out to do. To bring in the federal government, to talk to the people in Arkansas and Tennessee and Oklahoma, to bring it all together, to build what amounted to the biggest renewable energy project in the Americas. I mean, something that really is on the same level as the Hoover Dam. Yeah. So I sort of tagged along and followed the effort and all the twists and turns through the mid-2010s.
And so when you started writing the story, well, first of all, was it hard to get access to Michael Skelly? Was he easy to talk to?
No, I mean, that was one of the joys of sometimes when you're a nonfiction writer, you get lucky. Michael Skelly was, he really enjoys talking. He tells great stories. He's lived a really fascinating life.
Yeah.
Really the real deal. He actually was very hesitant about having a reporter, an author, follow him around, but he talked to one of his friends who used to run the Houston Chronicle, and that friend essentially told him, look, what you're doing is really important. Let this guy in, tell the bigger story. And so he agreed to do it.
Yeah, I mean, because, some of the scenes in the book, and like I want to just emphasize, the book reads super fast, and it's absolutely a joy to read it. And, it seems like you're just really right there. Like they gave you, it's incredible access.
I spent 20 years as an energy reporter, often doing investigative, these heavy, deep dive FOIAs. And in this case, I'd go to Skelly and say, hey, can I take a look at the financial plans we were working with? And he'd say, okay, yeah, here they are. They're right over here. I mean, he was a complete open book from the first day. Interestingly enough, some of the people in Clean Line were not. They were a little more hesitant. They kept kind of, sometimes when I go to their Houston offices, I would sort of get this feeling there was a little bit of a stink eye coming from a couple of people. After the fact, they all told me, look, we were worried you were going to be a distraction. We knew how big, monumental challenge was ahead of us, and we were worried that you were going to distract everyone. But it all worked out fine, and I remain close to a lot of those people and in contact with a lot of those people after the fact.
That's so cool. And so you didn't know what was going to happen as you were reporting it. Like, this could have gone either way?
Well, I thought I knew what was going to happen. I placed a bet, essentially, as did my publisher. I thought this was going to be a successful project.
Wow.
It had all the makings for a successful project. And I did not know what was going to happen. And there was a long stretch, basically 2017, where everything was right on the knife's edge. It was difficult to go through.
Yeah.
For Skelly and for Clean Line and for me also. And I remember a couple of times picking up the phone and calling Skelly and saying, come on, man, I can write this book if you crash and burn. I can write this book if you're successful, but you got to give me something. And he would sort of over the phone glare at me and say, yes, I know, we're trying to pull it off. But there was a long time where it was not clear what was going to happen. And it was, as a writer, that was extraordinarily frustrating.
Right.
It's hard to write something when you don't know what the outcome was. But once it was all over, and the other thing that was difficult, the calls to my editor at Simon & Schuster saying, this story's not going to be ready when I thought it was. But once it was over, having lived through that period, having been through when this company, this sort of multi-billion-dollar effort was right there, success or failure, was just fascinating. I think made the book much better for it.
Yeah, I feel like it too, because you, like I said, like you are pulling for this company the whole time you're reading it, and you can't, the subtitle is Quest, so you sort of have a sense that it doesn't say success or how they change the world, so you kind of know in the subtitle this isn't going to work out, but it's like a Greek tragedy. You're pulling, Well, and I wonder how that.
I would actually disagree with you. I think there is an element of success in this book. the Skelly, you know, I kind of always thought that the final scene in the book was going to be the ribbon cutting or the
Hmm.
first bulldozer coming in to erect the transmission tower, and that doesn't happen. But one thing that they did was they pushed the ball so far. They got the federal courts to agree that what they were doing was legal. They laid out, you know, they
Hmm.
laid out the sort of the game plan for how to get it done. And there are other people who are now following this. So, you know, he was sort of I think what we say, he was the mouse who sprang the mousetrap. You know, the
Nice.
mousetrap that
Yeah,
hit
yeah,
them,
yeah.
but then there are other mice that can kind of go afterwards
Oh,
now that
I
the
get the
trap
cheese.
and get the cheese. So, and
Yeah.
that's all going on right now. And I expect sometime in the next 2 or 3 years that one of the children of this effort will be successful.
Very cool. Maybe since we don't have a huge amount of time,
Okay.
um, I wonder if maybe that allows us to sort of transition to like, COVID. Everything's changed right now for energy, and not just because COVID. I know it was set up sort of just at the same time with, but yeah. Well, first of all, like, what do you do when they want to give you free oil?
Yeah. Well, no tanks. You say no
Yeah,
tanks, right?
I
That was the
love that.
joke.
That's like the best joke.
Yeah.
So,
I got that from somebody in the oil business.
oh, seriously?
Yeah, a long time. Actually, somebody who's related to someone who I wrote about my first book. We stayed in touch, and he texted me this. I said, "Oh, I've got to tweet that. That's just
Okay.
great."
I've even like gotten mileage out of that one, so it's really good.
Well,
So,
but this is sort of this fascinating situation right now in the oil business where we're producing too much oil. We have no place to store it, so the price stays low and has actually gone negative, where you have to pay someone to take the oil off your hands. I,
yeah.
I never would have guessed that I would have lived through to see that happen in the oil markets. It's really stunning. And, you know, it's going to be a tragedy for Texas. The number of people who are going to be put out of work by this is stunning. And, you know,
Yeah.
as somebody who has thought about this energy transition, moving from fossil fuels to renewables, I always envisioned it would be this slow process to
Mm-hmm.
watch that industry just sort of implode. Now, I think it will probably come back, but to watch all these people lose their jobs at once, I mean, there's a huge, you know, human toll being taken out in the Permian Basin right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I read today something about what the word they used was pro-rationing starting,
Yeah, pro
and
rationing. Yeah,
which
it's
is
a
like,
it's a fancy way of saying everyone cuts. You know,
okay.
it's yeah, yeah. Sometimes in industries they'll use this language that I can only believe is intended to keep everyone else from understanding what's going on. Pro
Scientists
rationing.
do that too,
Oh yeah,
So like, so,
pro rationing. Everyone cuts. It just is an industry wide cut. Rationing is actually the better word for it. Yeah. So there's this talk. I mean, this is what Texas used to do. If you go back to 1931, um, right in the middle of the Great Depression, demand for oil is down. And
mhm.
then you have the discovery of the giant East Texas oil fields. I mean, a massive, massive oil field. Supply is way up, demand's down, the price craters. And Texas's response is to send in the National Guard to shut
Really?
down the East Texas oil fields,
Whoa.
to get everything under control. And then eventually the state regulators came in and did a pro rationing to get everyone producing less oil, but everyone sort of shares in the cuts. I mean, this is one of the fascinating things I find about Texas is that that's a very sort of socialist.
Yeah, that's what I was just
Um,
thinking. That's
uh,
not a free market,
no,
right?
not at all. Absolutely not the free market. But what's really fascinating is that so there in the 1930s is Texas pioneering this idea that we'll sort of all cut for the common good, which is an idea that then is directly taken up by OPEC,
Right.
which then
Which is
controls
how
the
everything got out of control just now, right?
absolutely. Well, OPEC decided it didn't want to do it anymore, but for
Yeah.
more or less 70, what do we, almost 90 years, we either had Texas or the railroad, or excuse me, Texas or OPEC having the socialistic solution. And that actually ties into the book Superpower because who was the state that pioneered this idea that to bring about a lot of renewables, we all needed to share in this cost of building transmission? Well, that's Texas.